Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're dissecting the anatomy of a literal nightmare. We're going to dive right into four separate, absolutely terrifying true accounts from people who were just, working the graveyard shift. And look, we aren't just telling ghost stories around a campfire here. We're doing a deep psychological analysis of the very real, highly calculated tactics that predators use when they think no one is watching. By analyzing these incredible survival accounts, we're going to uncover the chilling patterns that are hiding right in plain sight. Let's get right into it.
I shouldn't be rude to people who know where I am. Just let that sink in for a second. This single, deeply unsettling quote was delivered over the phone to a 21-year-old gas station clerk who was working all alone at night. The callers started out using this fake horror movie voice, kind of like Ghostface from Scream. At first, it just seemed like a dumb prank from some friends. But when the clerk sarcastically hung up the phone, it rang again, and that calm, chilling sentence was delivered. It perfectly encapsulates that sheer, paralyzing horror of being watched by an unseen predator who holds absolutely all the cards. Okay, let's dive into this. Phase 1, the night shift trap. Across all four of the encounters we're looking at today, there's one overarching theme, and that's the terrifying vulnerability of the graveyard shift. The facts of working alone at night are pretty severe. Honestly, whether it's a rural gas station, a quiet dive bar, or an overnight shift at Walmart, the conditions are exactly the same. You've got single staffing, which means zero backup. You've got empty parking lots, known camera blind spots, and of course that natural human fatigue that hits you like a ton of bricks at 2 or 3 in the morning. Predators do not want a fair fight, right? They want an easy target, and the absolute quietness of these environments is exactly the canvas they need to set up their traps.
Which brings us to phase 2, scoping out the target. You see, these individuals rarely just strike out of nowhere. They meticulously test the waters. They gather intel, poking and prodding to see exactly how isolated you truly are before making a move. Take a look at the escalation of this 2017 gas station stalker. Notice how it builds over time. Between 9 and 10 p.m., the first calls come in. By 10:40, the caller actually notes how quiet the store is, proving without a doubt that he has eyes on the building. By 11 p.m., the calls become rapid fire, totally testing the clerk's endurance. And then finally, at 11:40 p.m., a man actually shows up in person. But he doesn't attack. He buys a bag of chips, takes way too long to pay, stares directly into the clerk's eyes over the shelves, and flashes this impossibly creepy, purposeful smile before leaving and vanishing into a camera blind spot out back. He was literally just testing the perimeter. And this brilliantly illustrates our next point. Let's look at the dive bar encounter. The perceived interaction here was a bartender named Cadence being approached by a really well-dressed, clean-cut, sophisticated older man in a trench coat. He leaves a crisp $100 tip and makes polite small talk. Sounds great, right? But the terrifying reality? He wasn't flirting at all. When he casually asked what time she got off work and if she ever thought of doing something bigger with her life, he was actively gathering intel on her schedule, her ambitions, and her vulnerabilities for a much, much darker purpose. Now, things speed up. Phase 3, decoys and distractions.
Once a target is fully scoped out, predators use psychological tricks to totally lower their defenses. This is the mechanical breakdown of the trap, the 3 steps every single one of these predators followed to a T. Step 1, isolate the target, making sure no coworkers are around. Step 2, introduce a distraction or a decoy, something that forces the victim to break their routine or step out of their safe zone. And step 3, the ambush. Now, the chilling parallels between these very different stories all hinge entirely on step 2. Look at the completely different decoys used to achieve the exact same goal. At the second gas station story, a man in a red hoodie claims his car broke down and he desperately needs a jump. Over at the dive bar, that wealthy man from earlier returns with a trendy woman who tries to recruit the bartender for a $10,000 weekend exclusive event gig, constantly asking her to just step outside to talk about it. In Walmart, a seemingly friendly woman suddenly grabs a worker to save her from a creepy guy. Guys, these are all Trojan horses. They rely heavily on human empathy, greed, or fear just to trick the victims into stepping outside their secure environment.
And that takes us to phase 4, springing the trap.
This brings us to the absolute most dangerous moment of the night, the exact second the polite illusion shatters. Let's analyze what is arguably the most insidious decoy of all, the Walmart setup. Now, the perceived situation here was a friendly stranger rushing in to rescue a night shift worker from a man who was allegedly recording her. The woman grabbed the worker's arm, acting like an old friend, and pulled her away. But the terrifying reality? Security footage later proved that the rescuer and the stalker actually walked into the store together, She was dragging the worker away from the safe, well-lit populated areas of the store, straight toward a dark, cameraless warehouse exit. Her radio was dead. Before the strange woman even grabbed her, the Walmart worker had tried to call for a manager about the creepy guy watching her, only to discover her equipment had completely failed. Just imagine that sheer, suffocating panic. The store is basically empty, it's the middle of the night, your one and only lifeline to the outside world is gone, and a stranger has a tight, vice-like grip on your arm, pulling you right into the dark. Now track the timeline for the dive bar ambush. Remember that trendy woman who offered the fake job? Well, days later, she returns, right at closing time, acting sort of pouty and begging for one last drink. Cadence, the bartender, turns her back just for a split second to pour it. Then she hears the front door click. The woman has vanished, locking Cadence inside. A black, unregistered van is suddenly idling right out front. And then, the horrifying sound of masked men aggressively rattling the back door, trying to flush her out into that waiting van. A perfectly coordinated trap. In the story of the second gas station worker, the one who is asked for a jump start by the man in the red hoodie, it actually wasn't just one guy. After the worker hit the panic button and the men fled into the woods, the police arrived to inspect the abandoned, stolen car. And that's when they found the most horrifying detail of the night. The front passenger door was open. The stranded driver had an accomplice crouching behind the bumper, sure, but there was a third person sitting inside that car the entire time, just waiting for the clerk to walk out. But here's the good news. Phase 5, trusting your instincts. This is where the narrative completely shifts. These workers did not become victims. They survived because they made incredible, split-second, life-saving decisions. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the psychological reaction of the predator. When the gas station clerk ran to the back room and hit the silent panic button, this massive, screeching alarm filled the store. You'd completely expect the man in the red hoodie to panic, right? But instead, his nervous energy completely vanished. He relaxed his posture, and he just smiled. A slow, knowing grin, almost as if he found the whole thing amusing right before he bolted. He knew the game was up. But the clerk's instinct to hit that button before ever stepping outside absolutely saved a life. These split-second survival decisions changed absolutely everything. The 2017 gas station clerk locked the front doors early, forcing his predator to speedwalk at him in the parking lot instead of ambushing him inside. Cadence, the bartender, realized she was being tailed by a suspicious car and immediately pulled into a heavily lit police station to shake them off. And the Walmart worker? When she finally realized she was being pulled toward a blind spot, she violently planted her feet, forcefully yanked her arm away from her so-called rescuer, and started screaming for help. They didn't care about being polite anymore. They cared about staying alive. Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway. The reoccurring fatal flaw in human nature that these predators rely on so heavily is our inherent desire to be helpful, to be polite, to just not cause a scene. But in the dead of night, politeness can get you killed. 0. That is the number of footprints police found leading away from that stolen car near the woods. Despite multiple men fleeing into the tree line, they left absolutely no trace. No missing persons were linked to the car, no arrests were made. In all of these stories, the predators simply vanished into the night, like literal ghosts, leaving the victims with no real closure, just the chilling memory of how close they came to disappearing themselves.
So the crucial point is this. As the Walmart worker ran away from the woman who tried to abduct her, she heard the woman yelling out after her, and the woman was calling out the worker's name, a name the worker had never given her. This was not a random crime of opportunity. She was a meticulously chosen, researched, and targeted victim. We've seen how easily a plea for help, a friendly smile, or a warning about a stalker can be weaponized against us. We all like to think we'd spot the danger immediately, but predators are absolute experts at blending their traps into everyday interactions. So I leave you with this one thing to think about. If you were all alone and a polite, distressed stranger asked you for help at 2 a.m., what would you really do? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay safe out there and always, always trust your gut.